Hi, I'm Pankti Mehta.
And I'm Arakali. Wherever you're listening to us, we hope you're doing well.
India's aircraft fleet is down by almost 450 planes because of beleaguered airlines and failed engines. Mark Martin, founder and CEO of aviation consultancy Martin Consulting, joins in to give us the big picture on where India's aviation sector is, the problems that plague it, and why a fresh infusion of Rs 100 crore in Jet Airways is not enough. When will we see the airline take to the skies? And why is it more necessary than ever that it does? Tune in to find out.
Now, for the last 2.5 years, we have seen everything that's been coming out of the Jalan Caldrock consortium more linked on the lines of wolf. 2-3 years ago, an airline was supposed to come in 3 months, and then there were reports of flights taking off, and then there was an announcement of proving flight done. And I think clearly all of that eventually came out to be nothing but attempts to spike the stock price up and obviously mislead the public at large. The court was pretty clear from the start. They said you need to pay 600 crores and you take the airline. I don't think the court was being unreasonable, and I think this is possibly the first time ever where the lenders, represented by the COC, the IRP, were in sync with the fact that this airline has to be brought back alive. It needs to be brought up on its feet, and we need to take steps to bring it back and get it flying. But the intent of Caldrock has always been to try and get this at a dirt cheap, almost throwaway price. It's a mindset and sentiment with anybody who approaches to buy something from the NCLT. The last judgment I thought was the most fair for all parties. Pay 487 crores, take the airline, get it up and running. And guess what? To see that day today, we've seen almost this being in limbo for about a year. Now, it's progressive that 100 crores has been paid, but that's not enough. Jalan Caldrock needs to pay at least 300 crores more to take full custody of the airline. But that does not mean you can start your airline. From that point, the consortium has to invest at least 3,000 to 5,000 crores with bringing aircraft in, with getting your people back, getting your training done, bring back your AOP, your maintenance facility, and then restart. So it's not going to be, there's no magic wand to this. It's going to take at least 12 to 24 months for us to see, hopefully, Jet Airways take back to the skies.
And even if they're committed to doing all of that, do you have a sense of why they think that they can make money out of it, given that it's a very competitive industry? It has always been.
We have to understand the market environment. As a result of Pratt & Whitney engines breaking and failing, close to 120 aircraft are currently grounded. On top of that, you start deducting the number of airlines that have failed over the last 7 years. Our fleet is down by almost 450 aircraft. Okay, so we need to not just replenish that 450, we got to add for growth as well, right? So the delta for growth is another 60 to 75%. So we're looking at inducting, ideally, to come to a level of stable fleet, at least induction of 700 more aircraft. It's going to take time for Air India to start getting its 470 aircraft, and it's going to take a bit more time for someone like an Indigo to start bringing in their next phase of inductions. So given what we have, I think all focus now shifts to the return of Go Air, return of Jet Airways, and of course an increasingly strengthening Akasa, which is now, mind you, 20 aircraft, and they're going to come up to 70 aircraft in the next 24 months. So once we see that, once we see about 500, at least 300, initially 300 aircraft come in, then we're looking at a reasonable balance of airfares. We're not going to see exorbitant arm-twisting fares like we did before. a Delhi Mumbai or a Delhi Bangalore selling at almost 50,000 rupees return, we start seeing those figures come down to 18 and 20,000.
So you're saying currently we are at about 800 aircraft right now in India, and there's potential to go quickly to say 1200, 1300, 1500 kinds of numbers if Jet and the others come up quickly.
That's right. So we've been 800 for the last 5 years when we should have been at least 1500. China's aviation market, being much smaller than us, has 6,000 aircraft deployed on domestic routes. So clearly, just by going by figures and the writing on the wall, we are in a significant negative, and we need to do something to sort that negative out.
So since Jet Airways was grounded back in April 2019, a lot has happened, right? We had the lockdown, and as you said, there are a few airlines have shut down as well. So where do you think the industry is now, and is this a good time to expect such revivals in terms of viability of businesses?
I think, Pankti, this is more about bringing back and given a shot of testosterone of what's left in terms of who we had. We're never going to get a Kingfisher back, so I think that's clear. The whole idea was to bring back Jet Airways because a lot of their routes and their slots are very unique. I mean, let's be honest, Jet Airways is India's longest and largest running private airline with a start in 1994, right? So they created a market share which is not just impacting for us in India, but also a global market share where folks out of the US and Europe swore by Jet Airways' service. The COVID pandemic has, what it ideally did was it paused air traffic everywhere. So if air traffic was paused at 12% in 2020, so 3 years demand of growth is 12, 24, 36%. So the growth we're seeing now in 2023 is actually the growth what we had in 2019, 2020, up by almost 40%. So this is something which we knew all along. You can't stop air travel and you can't stop air transport. No one's going to leave a flight and start taking the train or take a ship to London, right? So we're going to need to bring back air transport because air transport is possibly the most reliable and efficient transportation medium, at least today in today's world. So with that as the backdrop, it becomes almost imperative that not just a helping hand or, maybe we might have to extend some level of prosthetics or a crutch or two to some of these airlines to get them back, because who suffers eventually is the Indian traveling public. It's airports, it's fuelers, it's air navigation companies, it's guys who provide services, hotels, cafes, pretty much the entire upstream and downstream value chain that supports a typical airline, right? So we have to be very mindful that an airline is a money spinner and it is an economic growth driver. And those are two parameters which more or less drive our aviation sector in India.
We've just had yesterday numbers about how India's economy is doing well. And also in that context, can you talk about how we are doing as a nation in terms of supporting the aviation industry or tapping the potential of the aviation industry? I think the government has a program called UDAN. So in terms of building out the infrastructure that we need and encouraging the sector, where do you see it going?
I think broadly, we have to understand that air transport in India is driven by the consumer, the traveling public, and the Indian citizen. It begins and ends there. The government doesn't have any role to play, and the government doesn't do anything that great shakes to make any significant change happen. Because eventually, let's be clear, it boils down to affordability. If you, me, and 1.3 billion people out there have money to spare to go by air, they will take a flight. It's as simple as that. The more you burden him, the more you're affecting air transport, and you're affecting pretty much every upstream and downstream industry. UDAN fundamentally is about subsidy. It's about the center and the state contributing to make routes viable. I still don't get why we're going back to 1970 subsidy regime under Indira Gandhi. I can't understand that. But for some reason, the government wants to go back to subsidy. And guess what, Hari? Who's subsidizing it? It's you and me. For every ticket we buy on a Delhi Bombay or a Delhi Bangalore or a Delhi Calcutta or Delhi Ahmedabad or wherever that we travel, that flight is taxed 16,000 rupees as subsidy. Over and above that, you and I pay a passenger service fee and a user development fee, which also goes to Udan. We have to be clear that we don't need political or election gimmicks in aviation. Let aviation thrive the way it is. Give aviation the freedom that it truly deserves. And that is absolutely imperative. If you really want to simplify and subsidize it, then get rid of that ridiculously fat and thick tax layer on jet fuel. Remove it. The price will come down by almost 18%. Air transport needs to be recognized as infrastructure sector. It's not a luxury, it is a necessity.
You mentioned flights to London, for example. I just wanted you to spend 30 seconds, Mark, on talking about potential for wide bodies in India. I mean, we are almost entirely a narrow body aviation sector right now, right? With a few exceptions.
Yeah, Hari, that's an absolutely superb point you bring up. India's saturated with narrow body. We can't expand anymore with narrow body. We've taken the easy way out, and the reason we've taken that easy way out is because the day we start operating wide bodies on international routes, we're going to get a bloody nose because foreign airlines are going to drop their fares, discount their tickets, and go after us. And, they want to see us run to the ground. Okay. So with that whole fear of, and anxiety of not taking on the wrath of a foreign airline, what do? We go over expand in the domestic market, which is ridiculous. Indigo should have gone for twin aisle wide body aircraft 5 years ago and established itself globally wherever the Indian diaspora is. It's a no-brainer. South Africa, the US, Canada, Europe, Australia, Hong Kong, wherever you have a major Indian population, that's where you should go, right? But how come they've not done it? Well, because of competition, because they know that they're going to be eaten alive. I think it's very important that now you take that bold step. Now it's imperative that we start going international and we start focusing on international routes more than ever.
That's To The Point today. You can find all our podcasts on ForbesIndia.com and on your favorite podcast app. I'm Arakali.
And I'm Pankti Mehta.
Thank you for listening.